Chicago. Welcome on in to the latest episode of Chi-Town Weekly here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Lots that we're going to be getting into tonight. Caleb Williams and the Bears offense. That was a bit rocky on Saturday. Some ups, some downs, some in between. We will break that down. We will discuss some interesting things that were going on Saturday. The Sky came back from the Olympic break. It was not exactly the performance we were hoping it would be from them. 2 losses to the Phoenix Mercury in the span of about 4 days. Not great stuff. We will break that down as well. The baseball teams, one finally got put out of its misery. The other is going to be welcoming an old friend back into town this week, if nothing else. And then I have to be a proud papa for a little bit tonight. All that plus more coming up right now on Chi-Town Weekly. Do not go anywhere. Buckling on up. Let's have some fun, everybody. And welcome one and all to another episode of Chi-Town Weekly here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. I am your host, Adam Karnick. Glad that you are here with us tonight. Lots to be going through tonight on the breakdown. We are going to be, of course, talking Bears-Bengals preseason action as the Bears came out victorious, if you care about such things in the preseason. We'll also be talking about the Chicago Sky on tonight's episode as they had a rough welcome back from the Olympic break. We'll also be talking about some baseball tonight, and then I've got some fun family stuff to break down and boast about my daughter a little bit. So we are going to have a lot of fun on the show tonight. But before we get into all that, we have got to hear a quick word from our sponsors here at the station. IE Sports Radio fans, this show is brought to you by Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky. Planet Jerky is the official jerky of the 2022 California League champion Lake Elsinore Storm, single-A affiliate of the San Diego Padres. This all-brisket jerky has gluten-free options, contains no MSG, no sodium nitrate, is low in sugar, and high in protein. Go to their website at planetjerky.net and follow them on Instagram at Planet Jerky. Planet Jerky, the jerky that's on a whole other planet.
Hey there, IE Sports Radio fans. Be sure to check out our sponsor, Seal the Deal Wax Seals by Cecilia B. You just finished your very own wedding or baby shower invitations and you're looking for that extra special touch? Maybe you just wrote a letter to a relative or a friend and you want to add to their smile when they receive it. Then seal the deal with Cecilia's handmade sealing wax stamps for your invitations, letters, and gifts. You bring the deal, we'll bring the seal. You can find them on Instagram at sealthedeal_wax stamps and on Facebook, Seal the Deal Wax Seals.
For the last 10 years, IE Sports Radio has been bringing you amazing content ranging from interviewing legendary athletes, coaches, and other authorized media personnel to building tailor-made shows dedicated to all major sports cities around the country. Make sure to follow us at IE Sports Radio on X, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube to keep up with the latest in sports and with all of our shows. Also, make sure to check out our daily updated website at iesportsradio.com. At iesportsradio.com, you can see our daily show schedule and check out all of our show pages with personal bios to learn a little bit more about each of our awesome hosts. In addition to our show pages, you can catch the iSports Radio blog, Hall of Fame, Fans of the Month page, and our merchandise shop including t-shirts, tank tops, caps, long sleeves, hoodies, and more. For now over a decade here at IE Sports Radio, we've continued to be by the fans, for the fans, and we thank you all for your support and for making IE Sports Radio your direct feed for all that is sports.
And welcome back on into the show. Be sure to check out all of our sponsors: Planet Jerky, Premium Brisket Beef Jerky, Seal the Deal Wax Seals, and of course, the platform that makes all of this possible, IE Sports Radio. You can check out all of them at their various spots. Planet Jerky, you can find them on Instagram at Planet Jerky or by going to planetjerky.net to place your orders. Seal the Deal Wax Seals at seal the deal_wax seals on Instagram or by ordering at iesportsradio.com/seal the deal wax seals. And of course, you can follow along with IE Sports Radio on X, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok by just searching at IE Sports Radio. This show is also available for you on Twitter. You can follow along with us at IESRC, or you can follow along with me personally. I am at Adam_Karnick. And I do want to welcome in everybody in the chat room listening live here tonight. Wes Trueblood, good evening to you, sir. And yes, a happy victory Monday of sorts. You know, we have fun with better a victory Monday than a losing Monday, even in the preseason. Good evening to Ralph Calise. Good evening to you, sir. Thank you for the kind words. Best podcaster in Chicago. I do my best. I'll put it that way. Thank you for the kind words, sir. Taryn Rodriguez, good evening to you as well. And then Kathy Karnick commenting on the art in the background. Yeah, we had a little bit of fun this weekend, did a little bit of work in the studio. I'll try to move my big fat head out of the way. We got some fresh artwork up here, some banners. We've got a Bears banner, Blackhawks banner, and then over on the other side, a Cubs banner hanging up, just to give us a little bit of something there to be checking out in the background while we do the show for the visual. For those watching live either on YouTube or Twitter or also on Instagram, the show streams live on all of those platforms on Monday night. But to everybody that listens on later on in the week as a podcast, whether it's Spreaker, Spotify, even YouTube, wherever it is. Thank you for being here. That's the part that we love about it, is just your continued support being here. That's what makes us all go round. So let's dive into it now, shall we? The Bears, their third of 4 preseason games, and overall they handled the Bengals fairly well, fairly decisively by the final score, which, again, it's the preseason. I don't put a ton of stock into the final score. Coaches aren't really necessarily trying to win the games. Sure, you'd always rather win it than lose it, but you're not necessarily as concerned with the final outcome. It was the official home debuts for Rome Odunze, Keenan Allen, DeAndre Swift, and of course, number 1 overall pick, Caleb Williams. It was a bumpy start on Saturday. The first 3 drives all went 3 and out for the offense. They failed to get a first down in the first quarter offensively. And I was just thinking the whole time as I was watching, I was just reminded that as long as we have a rookie quarterback this year, we are going to see these hills and these plateaus all throughout. It's going to be very rocky. The growth is not going to be linear. Just because last week's preseason debut went so well for Caleb Williams and company, we shouldn't have automatically assumed that this one would do tremendously well. And it didn't. It was a very rough start. I know the plan originally had been to play the starters a quarter and then get them out of there. And they very correctly and wisely and appropriately, I felt, abandoned that plan, because while last week in Buffalo, you managed to get off 18 plays offensively in the first quarter, you only managed half that this go around in the first quarter. It was all of 9 plays, 0 first downs. And good evening, Davidson. Yes, please hit the like button on the video. Follow along with us on the Cognac Boys. Good evening, gentlemen. Absolutely glad to see you guys here. Yes, and it is going to take time to get this. It's not just because last week went well doesn't automatically mean that this week is going to start off exactly where the last one left off. And it was painful to watch. It was tough on everybody. You had DJ Moore drop another pass. You had Caleb attempt a bad throw back across the middle that Gerald Everett just wasn't ready for. It was interesting hearing Shane Waldron talk about that particular play today. And he actually said that Caleb identified the defense correctly on that one and made ultimately the proper diagnosis. It was just poor execution on his part. He rushed it and got a bad throw off to Gerald Everett before it was ready. I was saying at that point, you need to leave the starters out there for the second quarter. Give them a 4th drive. I know that wasn't the plan originally to give them 4 drives, but you couldn't go out on that note. You needed to have some semblance of positive production to hang your hat on out of that. And that was the 4th drive. I loved the play call there, where it was just do a simple end around, get the ball into Rome Odunze's hands, let him feel comfortable, let them feel some success. And then thanks to the penalty, you get down into field goal range. It still ultimately ended up in a field goal, but I would have been fine right then and there to just, you know what? Okay. You executed the extra drive. You got into scoring drive. You got a completion for Caleb Williams. You had some big plays. You got a field goal, mission accomplished. Go ahead and take him out. And then they kept him out there for the 5th drive. And that was the big now you had all the positive vibes and all the good feels, that beautiful sequence of the first pass to Roma Dunze. Oh my goodness, how pretty that throw was. And we saw this all the time the last couple years with Justin Fields, where it was making chicken salad out of chicken. Only he was doing it more often than not with his legs. To see Caleb doing it with his arm. Wow. It was that first throw to Rome down the left sideline. That was a 45-yard handoff. That was just a thing of beauty to behold. Cody, yeah, it was strange seeing Waldron go to the pass game to get it started. And then, Soldier Field was absolutely loving those throws. Yeah, to see it in person, oh my heavens. That was just, your jaw had to be on the floor as that was happening, to just see that throw just land perfectly in the breadbasket for Rome. And then, honestly, the play that I was most impressed with, though, was the one that didn't even officially count, where Caleb rolled to his right. A defender had him dead to rights. He managed to shake off the lineman and then throw a beautiful strike to Rome in the back of the end zone. Unfortunately, Adunza was out of bounds and didn't realize it. You can thank the crew at Soldier Field that didn't quite have the lines properly marked, that Rome got confused there and didn't realize he was out of bounds when he caught it. He wasn't sure if he was in bounds or not when he caught it, but it's just such an amazing diagnosis and play. And then, of course, the touchdown run by Caleb to cap it off. That, to me, that reminded me a lot of Justin Fields watching that, just the breakdown and then the identifying where the lane is, that, yeah, I'm okay to just take it down and run with it, and to cap that off and finish that off. So you got a little bit of everything there. You got the brilliance at the end in the second quarter. And again, this is why Caleb was so highly regarded, and frankly, why Rome Odunze was so highly regarded coming out of college. But you also got this is a rookie experience. This is going to be painful at times. This isn't going to be perfect from Jump Street. There are going to be problems here. And so now that leads us into the game on Thursday, a fourth preseason game for the Bears. Should the starters play at all on Thursday? Going back in the days when 4 preseason games was the norm and the expectation there, the fourth preseason game was always you're predominantly going to feature your backups, your third, fourth, fifth stringers, your guys that you pretty much know aren't going to make the final roster, but here's an opportunity for them to get showcased, to say, if nothing else, hey, I got to play I got to wear an NFL helmet. I got to put on an NFL jersey and be out on that field for a game. It wouldn't be uncommon and it wouldn't be uncalled for to have the starters play. And I'm actually a little torn. There is a part of me that does want to see them go out there and play just one drive, just to let's see what they can do. The problem with it, though, is if that drive is a 3 and out, I wouldn't want to end my preseason on that. I'd want to end on a high note. And so then I'd want to put them out there for a second drive, and then potentially for a third drive, depending on how that goes. And that could be dangerous. So I think almost certainly they're not going to play. And I think ultimately that's probably the right decision to keep them safe, to keep them out of this, so that you know that these guys are going to be out there. You've got a couple weeks to get ready for Tennessee. I'm okay making that the focus at this point. I would like to see the starters play one drive. I just want to know that drive would go well. That if that's not being too presumptuous of me in a preseason game, I'd want the drive, not necessarily to end in points, but to at least end in, you get a couple of first downs, you sustain something. And even if it's all right, it bogged down at the 40, or it bogged down at their 30, at the Kansas City 35, and then you punt. Okay. That's okay to me. If you get a field goal, great. You get a touchdown. Oh my gosh. Then absolutely you get everybody out of there. But I think ultimately we're not going to see the starters on Thursday. And that's probably the correct call on that. Larry B chiming in, duh, Bears. And thank you, Patty. The backdrop. Yeah. The new backdrop got that up over the weekend. Help from thanks to my mom helping to get that up here. Yesterday afternoon, we spent a couple hours getting some stuff up here. There's some other things up here in the studio too that are more for me. I'll have some more things up as we get moving. Try to get it a little bit more of a studio like atmosphere down here, but it was nice to get the couple of things anyway. A little bit of a visual, but. the Patty also chiming in. The Bengals don't have Eric Washington to help with the game plan. Yes. Yeah, there is that too, that knowing what would be coming potentially defensively from Buffalo may have helped with Chicago's offense there in Buffalo a little bit. I think some of it, I think it's more though. It was just having the rookies out there and being rookies. I think there's a lot to be said for just rookies going to rook, and new play caller. You're going to have ups and downs and hiccups. And we just saw some of those on Saturday. All's well that ends well. Tyson Bagent played very well as well. A couple of beautiful touchdown passes to Dante Pettis. So we're starting to see the roster take shape. Next week, I think we'll have some fun and make some predictions of what the final roster will be. We'll take a look at that and try to make some predictions there. But I don't think we're going to see very much from the starters at all on Thursday. And that's ultimately probably the right move and the right call there from Eberflus and company. All right, we are going to take ourselves our first break. And then when we come back, the Olympics are done. So that meant the sky could return to the court with some pivotal games coming up for them. We previewed that last week. It didn't quite go the way we hoped it would, though. We will break that down and discuss what's upcoming this week for the Sky next here on Chi-Town Weekly, part of IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. We'll be right back after this.
Hey, yo, what's up? It's your man Bishop, the voice of This Is KC Sports, the show where we go over the Chiefs, the Royals, KC Current, Sporting KC, MU, and oh yeah, if we got time, we'll even throw in some of that KU stuff for my people on the 913 South. Come and hang out with us every Sunday, 2 p.m. Central Standard Time on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
And welcome back on into Chi-Town Weekly here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Adam Karnick here with you, back at it. We talked a lot of Bears there in the first segment. And as you know, the closer and closer and closer we get to the NFL season, and of course, once the NFL season gets underway, we'll be talking a ton more Bears all throughout. But wanted to shift gears a little bit now and discuss the Chicago Sky. They came back from their Olympic break last week, but it was not the return we were hoping for. I had talked about last week how this was a very pivotal week to return for them. They started off the week last week in the 8th and final playoff spot in the WNBA standings with 16 games to go, and they played the Phoenix Mercury, a team up in the number 6 spot in the playoff standings, but a team only a game and a half behind in front of them twice. So they had an opportunity to make up that distance in the span of a week. Well, it didn't go that way really at all. The Sky, sandwiched in between the two games with the Mercury, they did play the Los Angeles Sparks. Well, they handled the Sparks, which is a good thing, 90-86 in that one. The Sparks are terrible. That's a team you absolutely have to be able to handle and beat. Tied for the worst record in the WNBA. They won that one, but in the two opportunities against Phoenix, it did not go well at all. Lost at home 85-65, and then losing last night out in Phoenix 86-68. So a couple of very rough games for the Sky last week. Not at all what you were hoping to see from them. Didn't make up any ground at all. And you could just, watching the games, you could see where those two teams might only be separated by a couple of spots officially in the standings, but there was a ton separating them on the court, the way they played. Phoenix was absolutely the more dominant team all the way through. They had absolutely no answer for Brittany Griner down low. Whenever Griner was on the floor, it was just feed the ball in down low and let her do her thing. Cordosis, a rookie, she's going to learn from that experience. She's going to learn from going up against, one of the all-time great bigs there. But that was a rough start. That was a rough start for sure on that one. So yeah, not great stuff overall there from the Sky, really in either game against Phoenix. So now as we sit here, they are still in 8th place in the WNBA standings. They're a game and a half in front of Atlanta. They're 2 games up in the win column, but only 1 up in the loss column. And that is, of course, going to be the more important number as we get down to the final stretch here. They've got some work to do there to maintain that spot. They're only a game and a half behind Indy for the 7 spot. I said last week that I thought anywhere from the 6th spot to the 9th spot was likely for the Sky. I think now their ceiling is probably going to cap out at the 7 spot, unless somebody at the top just really starts tanking and really starts struggling. We did see Angel Reese did become the fastest player in WNBA history to record 20 double-doubles. So congratulations to Angel on that. A job very well done there, as she is just continuing to have an outstanding rookie season. Not going to get any easier this week, though, for the Sky as they get ready to take on Connecticut and Las Vegas this week. We're going to see the game against Connecticut, against currently the number 2 team in the entire WNBA, the Connecticut Sun. That game is on Friday night in Connecticut. That one could be rough. And then they come home and to face the Las Vegas Aces Sunday afternoon, or really Sunday late morning, 11 o'clock, an 11 o'clock tip Sunday morning. They handled the Aces right before the Olympic break. So maybe they'll have it in them again to pull off an upset there on that one on Sunday. If they come out of this week with a split, if they go 1-1 this week in their 2 games, that'll be a major accomplishment for the Sky in this one. I would imagine that would probably help them maintain as well as we take a look some of the other games going on this week. Some, other games that we need to keep track of. Atlanta is taking on Phoenix on Wednesday, so that should be able to help. I would imagine that Phoenix should be favored in that game there. On that one, those two will take on each other again on Friday, so that could be easily 2 losses for Atlanta, which would help Chicago just see an increase in that distance and a little bit more cushion there with that. The Fever, they don't take the court again until Saturday when they take on Minnesota. So that'll be a tough one as well. So a rough week for just about everybody around the Sky right now in the standings, including the Sky themselves. But if they're able to take one of these games, that could bode very, very well for them to make up some ground or to put a little bit of distance between them and some of the other teams. So we'll see how that goes. The latest power rankings came out from ESPN this week. I want to get those, see if I can get those pulled up here real quickly. The Aces have been struggling a little bit too. They got upset by New York this past week. As we sit here this week, taking a look at the WNBA power rankings right now, Chicago is 9th in the ESPN power rankings. They fell from 8th. Actually, Atlanta jumped up all the way from 12 to 8, according to ESPN. So Chicago right now has Chicago outside the playoffs looking in, but we'll see what goes on there with that. The schedule will get a little bit easier for Chicago after that, but this week is going to be a little bit of a rough one. All right, we're going to take one more break, and then we're going to talk some baseball in town, and then I've got to be a proud papa a little bit, and it's my show, so indulge me a little bit while I do that. This is Chi-Town Weekly, part of IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. We will be right back after this.
everybody. This is Taryn Rodriguez. Are you a fan of volleyball? Are you a fan of Thunder Spikes? Then I have the show for you. Set Point, where I cover NCAA men's and women's volleyball, high school boys and girls volleyball, beach volleyball, and even professional volleyball. Catch the action every week here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
And welcome back on into Chi-Town Weekly here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Adam Karnick here with you for the next 19 or so minutes, however much we have left in the show tonight. Be sure to stick around afterwards. Taryn Rodriguez of Set Point will have a brand new episode tonight, breaking down everything in the world of volleyball. The Olympics are done, so there's some final wrap up there, but that doesn't mean that the volleyball world has stopped moving. Taryn will have lots of stuff. The college season is right around the corner, so I know he will have all kinds of good nuggets and tidbits for us on that. Wanted to talk some baseball a little bit here to finish out the show from the sports topics before I have a little bit of fun, and you'll just have to indulge me as I be a little bit of a proud dad for a little bit tonight on the show. The White Sox, they managed to make some history last week. For this team, of course, it's on the bad side, though, of course. The fastest team to get eliminated from postseason contention in the history of MLB, as they sit here at 30-95. And they are on August 19th, they are already eliminated from postseason play with 37 games left to go. They'd have to win just way too many games to avoid the 100 losses. So a tip of the cap of sorts, I suppose, to the White Sox for that just incredibly badness that is going on as they get ready to head out on a West Coast trip now and continue the legion of bad there for the White Sox this week. Coming up for them, they're out in San Francisco later on tonight, getting ready to take on the Giants here. First pitch is going to be a little over an hour from now. 3 against the Giants. Then they get to come home and they take on the Tigers for 4 games before then taking on the Rangers next week. That series against that 4-game set against the Tigers. That's a rare Friday through Monday 4-game set. That's a little unusual and a little different. The MLB has done some really quirky, weird stuff with their schedule. I get it. From a player's standpoint, I kind of like this. You're flying back from the West Coast on Wednesday, and yes, you're playing a day game on Wednesday. It's a 2:45 Chicago first pitch, but it's still, you're going to be, it's going to be what, 7:00 Chicago time before you're actually leaving San Francisco, and then it's a 3-hour flight. You're not getting in till 10:00 at night, and your body's on the wrong time. I get and appreciate why they gave them that Thursday off. I'm sure the players appreciate it. It's just really weird to look and see a 4-game set go from a Friday to a Monday. That's just looks weird. It's just a strange setup for it. But that is plenty to talk about the White Sox as they just continue their terrible bad ways here. Let's talk the other side of town here for a little bit, shall we? Let's talk some Cubs. As we'll change the mood, we'll change the color a little bit. And I've done enough blue for those watching on YouTube or Twitter or Instagram watching the live version of the show. I've done enough variations on blue. I know red's a secondary for the color for the Cubs. We're going to go with it tonight as we talk about some Cubs. The Cubs continuing to stay in the American League right now, despite they're still in the National League Central, but they haven't taken on anybody from the National League since all the way back on August 4th. Rough week for the Cubs last week. They were swept out of Cleveland by the Guardians. I know Jen B was certainly excited to see that and watch that. And she and I had some back and forth about that. Then they hosted the Blue Jays for 3 at Wrigley, took the first 2 6-5 in extra innings on Friday afternoon. Then Saturday took that one 3-2 before losing yesterday 1-0. The bats just could not get anything going. If you'd have told me Shota Imanaga is starting Sunday and is only going to give up 1 run, Cubs are going to win that game. But the offense continued its struggle. It's year-long struggles that they've gone through way too frequently. Somebody else that has had more than enough struggles that I'm ready to say I've seen enough of at this point is Hector Neris. He had another blown save on Friday. I know he's been doing a lot better. He hadn't officially blown a save for a couple of months. I'm ready I have seen enough of Hector Neris. I know that they've got to have somebody in that role for as long as they are still viable as a playoff team. You've got to have somebody in that role, in that position of closer. But I've seen plenty of Hector Neris to last me. I'm plenty good on all that. I don't need to see more of Hector Neris at the closer. Put in Jorge Lopez, but find somebody. So the Cubs, they're off tonight. They've got one more series against the American League before they finally return to the National League this weekend. And they get to welcome back an old friend. The Detroit Tigers come to town for a 3-game set. That's the other reason why the Sox 4-game set with the Tigers doesn't start till Friday, because the Cubs and the Tigers, the Tigers will be playing the Cubs over at Wrigley on Thursday. That's the other reason for that. So still just the scheduling of it is it's just weird. So the Tigers getting ready to spend their week here in Chicago, a week-long visit to the Windy City. And Javier Baez makes his first return to Wrigley Field. That's going to be kind of special for him. He has been struggling with the Tigers. Comes into the season hitting just 185. He's only got a handful of home runs to his name. He is not the same guy that was traded out of here to the Mets 3 years ago in the gigantic, massive Exodus trade day. It's amazing to think now that at one point Javier Baez was thought highly enough in baseball circles that the Cubs were able to get Pete Crow Armstrong from the Mets when they traded away. My gosh, what a deal what a steal that looks like now. Jed Hoyer making that move to trade away Javier Baez and get Pete Crow Armstrong in return. What a steal of a move that was. Speaking of Jen B, I was just talking about you. I know you were having fun last week at the expense of the Cubs, your Guardians trying to exact some revenge. That's okay. Nothing can take away that series in Cleveland in 2016. Nothing does it. The Cubs could lose every game played at Progressive Field or whatever it's called now there in Cleveland for the rest of eternity, for as long as that's it. Yeah. And I see the brooms come out. Yeah, that's okay. Enjoy it. The greatest game ever played was still in that stadium on a Wednesday night in November in 2016. And that I will happily trade all future Cubs wins in that stadium for that one in 2016. So, and Jen reminding us she was actually in Chicago for that series. So she was on the opposite side of it. She was living in enemy territory at the time on that one. So the Cubs this week getting to welcome back one of those 2016 heroes in Javier Baez. His fall from grace has been here's a good question. Hit me up. Hit up the show. You can hit us up in the comments section right now with the answer to this one, or feel free to hit me up on Twitter at IESRC or at Adam_Karnick on this one. Whose fall from grace has been more shocking with the Cubs? Chris Bryant or Javier Baez? And had you told me when they both got traded away that neither one of those guys was really going to amount to anything in their new towns with their new teams? Chris Bryant got traded to San Francisco, finished the season out there, didn't accomplish anything. Now he is toiling away in just absolute futility in Colorado. Well, when he's able to stay healthy, he can't do anything, and he's barely able to stay healthy. Or Javier Baez, who got traded to the Mets and within weeks of being there was getting called out and booed by the fans. And now in Detroit, he's a non-entity. I mean, you can't play him. The only reason he gets playing time is because his contract is so huge. It's still, for me, the one that's more surprising is still Chris Bryant, but Javier Baez, I'm still surprised it's gone as bad as it has for him. That's still, to me, just so shocking and so surprising. Then after that, this week, the Cubs will be taking on the Marlins down in Miami. There's no reason why the Cubs can't take 4 or 5 or heck, all 6 of the games they play this week. You've got a day off today. Then you've got 3 against the Tigers, 3 against the Marlins. They should be able to win both of those series. And if they want to truly be making any kind of a push for that wild card spot, they sit here now 5.5 games back of the Atlanta Braves, and they're 6 back in the loss column. And you've got St. Louis, San Francisco, and the Mets also that they have to jump to do that. You've got to be taking advantage of playing these weaker opponents. You've got to be winning these series. So we'll see how they do this week, but the schedule is still very much in their favor. All right. I want you to indulge me for just a couple minutes here, as we've got about 6 minutes, 5 minutes or so left in the show before we turn things over to Taryn Rodriguez and Set Point. I have to be a proud papa for a minute. So my wife, I was a bachelor last week. I got to be a bachelor for about 10 days. I slept. That was a big thing. A big accomplishment was catching up on sleep. also got to make some food that I don't normally get to have because my wife doesn't care for it. So, some fun things like that. But my wife and the kids, they were up in northern Minnesota, where my wife is originally from. My father-in-law every year takes the family to a lake in northern Minnesota to go pike fishing for the week. And I've gotten to go a couple of times. I couldn't go this time various reasons beside the point. But this was for my son, obviously, who's, he's not even a year and a half. This was his first time going. For my daughter, it was her second time, but it was her first, she doesn't remember the first time. So this was the first time she got to go actually out in the boat and actually go out fishing. And I was loving all week long seeing the pictures come in from my family and seeing, who she was in the boat with this time and who's helping her to bring in the fish and who's, helping to point out the things and just, then hearing her and talking with her about it. She had a wonderful time, an amazing time. I have a couple of stories though that I have to share and brag about my daughter a little bit. She is apparently quite the little angler right now. That's going to take on a whole new meaning here in just a few years. I don't want to think about that. I mean, as a fisherman at this point. I got a story the other day from my wife. They were out there. My daughter managed to hook a fish on her bait while taking a nap. The boat was rocking in the waves a little bit, which the fish love it when the water's choppy like that. Well, my daughter, apparently the rocking of the boat put her right to sleep, but she still had her pole in the water. That didn't stop her from catching a fish, though. My wife told me, yeah, I had to wake her up and tell her, honey, you have a fish on the line. We got to bring that in. Oh, okay. But then the big story was then Friday morning, I get this picture of a truly massive fish. My daughter is 6. She managed to hook a 45-inch long muskie, which, for those that don't know, they are related to pike. Pike are a little bit smaller, very muscular. Well, muskies are the northern pike's bigger, more muscular cousin. And she managed to hook a fish basically as long as she was onto her cane pole, and then everybody worked in tandem as a boat to get that one in. It took it took some time to get that one in, but then the look on her face, the smiles on her face of what she had done. She is now thoroughly in love with this idea of fishing and has already told me, Daddy, we need to come back next year. So I guess next year I got to do a little bit better planning on my part and make sure that all of us get up there for that. So they had a wonderful time, and that's a bigger fish than I've ever caught. She one-upped me. We'll have to settle that score next time. I can't really even pretend to be that upset. I have gone fishing. The 2 times I have gone on this family trip are the 2 times total in my life that I have gone fishing. So it doesn't take much to have gotten more experience or had a better chance to catch something bigger than what I have. So, but it was a good trip was had by all, and everybody had a wonderful time. So it was good for them. But now we're all back at it and ready to dive into the fall. So that is going to do it for our show here tonight. Some shout outs and thank yous once again to our sponsors, Planet Jerky, premium brisket beef jerky, the jerky that's on a whole other planet. You find them on Instagram at Planet Jerky. You can also place your orders at planetjerky.net. Also, Seal the Deal Wax Seals by Cecilia B. You follow them on Instagram at @SealTheDeal_Wax Seals. Place your order at icesportsradio.com/ Seal the Deal Wax Seals. Also, of course, shout out and thank you to the program host of all things here for the show, IE Sports Radio. You can follow us on X, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok and YouTube at IE Sports Radio. IESportsRadio.com is the website. You can catch any of the shows as podcasts on Apple Podcasts, Spreaker, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, Audible, CastBox, Deezer, Podcast Addict, Podchaser, and Gio7. Thank you also to Larry B., the czar and overlord of all things IE Sports Radio, for all the hard work you do, sir. It does not go unnoticed, nor is it unappreciated. Thank you to everybody that hung out in the chat room with us this evening. Ralph Calise was here. Wes Trueblood was here. We had Taryn Rodriguez, Kathy Koenig in the chat. Davidson Crooks, the Cognac Boys jumped on in. Larry B himself, and then of course Patty Bax went from guest on the show to she catches out everything that's happening as well. Jen B as well, hanging out in the chat room with us this evening. Finally, thank you for being here, whether this was your first show or your 196th show. Thank you for being here and listening. Next week, we're going to have a bunch of college football to break down. We'll do that. See you next week.